Hello and welcome back to BME 2315. Today we're going to do a quick overview of some of the main features of MATLAB. So the learning goals for this section will be to first become familiar with the MATLAB desktop and know how to use it, to be able to define variables and use matrix variables, to be able to use basic programming control structures in MATLAB, to be able to create scripts, and then in the next lecture we'll be looking at how to make functions and how to use the MATLAB debugging environment to debug your code. So the first set of topics are such here. They're sort of just for my notes so that we'll go through and make sure that we hit each one of those using MATLAB. So basically we'll be looking at the desktop, command window, how to specify variables, how to make matrices, how to do basic control structures, how to use cell mode, and some of the other, the basics of MATLAB Grader I think we'll do another time. So let me flip over to MATLAB now. Okay, and so when you have MATLAB loaded, it might look something kind of like this, or in a little bit different arrangement. So this is the editor tab, and I have open a MATLAB file, and so you can see what that looks like. There's up at the top are the names of different MATLAB files that are can contain different bits of code. We have the working directory specified up here. That means like that's the current directory where MATLAB is running code from. On the right we have the workspace. So the workspace contains the values of all the different variables that are live right now. So if I double click on one of them, it'll show the values of this variable x. And so that's very much like the variable explorer that Spider has. In fact, the overall organization of Spider has been set to mimic aspects of the MATLAB one to make that transition from MATLAB to Spider easier. So this is the workspace. If we can do something like clear all, you'll see that those variables disappear from the workspace. And then if I say x equals 5, we can see it now appears. Okay. So this is the command window where you can live enter in commands just like you could from Spider. Okay, so that is just the basics of what's happening here. You'll often be in the editor tab, but you might have a reason to run more other things from these other tabs. But I think from the basic use, we're going to be running from the editor tab. And if you want to open other files, you got the open or save what you've got, things like that. Okay, one other thing to mention is that this control structures file is a script. It is basically just a script of a set of MATLAB commands. We'll go through them in a minute. It's just a set of MATLAB commands, and so when you run the script, it will immediately go line by line to execute the contents. And so you can either run the whole thing, like you hit the run button, okay, and that hit the whole thing. It's still running apparently. Yeah, it's done now. Or you can run bit by bit. I'm gonna quit debugging here. Okay. I'm going to skip out of that. Okay, so let's take a look at how to make a few different things. So we've got this command window where we can enter commands here, and we can make variables just like x equals 5. Or here, I'm going to actually now run, you can run this by section. You can say run section, and this is a cell mode. This is in cell mode right here, just like we were doing in Spider. So with the double % signs, That's because MATLAB actually developed this first, and then Spider saw that it was a good idea to break up code in little bits. So let me just clear all. So it'll be clear what code I'm running. Okay, and then if I run this section, run it and advance it, we say that x equals 5. We can create matrices through here. Notice here that the semicolon is used to denote columns right here. And so we'll take a look at what happens when we do that in just a second. So by this code right here, we made the matrix B, and we can take a look at B right here. It's a 6x1 double. Okay, so we made that, and also we made a matrix C that is a 3x3 double. Okay, so basically one of the things that you'll find is that creating and manipulating matrices is a little bit easier in MATLAB than in Python. If we want to see the size of the matrix, we just need to use the size command. And as you see, we did that, and it said that B was 6x1, as we had already seen. Or using the size command, like on line 15, we can get the number of like columns and rows of that matrix B by itself. So these are some of the basic ways of making and viewing matrices. Next, here's how you do strings. You use instead of the print command, you use the disp command. But otherwise, that's pretty much like you would see it in Python. So the first major control structure in MATLAB is the if-else end statement, and as you can see here, it says if 4 less than 3, display not okay. So hopefully it will say not okay, then else and display okay. So this has a couple of things to note that is different than Python. So first, notice the semicolons. Those are optional things at the end of the line, and if you remove them, then it's going to display the content of what happened in that command. So usually you want to suppress that, and so you use these semicolons on the end of each of these lines. So if I just run this little section and advance, it said okay. Why does it say okay? Yeah, because it said that it skipped over this, so it went like this. Okay. Now for the for loops, they look like this. The for my index equals 1 to 5, and in MATLAB makes matrices kind of a little bit easier to create. And then we're kind of going to look at the output of the counter on each of these runs. We do that, and so as you can see it at the command window, it says 1 through 5. Okay, so that's a for loop. And we can also do nested for loops. You see for this, and you can see here that we can just directly specify the counters in here rather than using the arange function that was in Python. Okay, so I'll run this one, and we can see that it was able to loop over there and do something different on each one. Okay, the next control structure is a while loop, and like in any other language, you need to specify some sort of initial thing to be evaluating, and this is saying why I is less than 5, and it's going to display I and then increment I, and kind of go up until it's no longer less than 5. So this looks an awful lot like Python. All right, so it went up through 4. It went up through 4 before breaking. Okay, so the next thing I'd like to show is some of the basic commands for manipulating and making matrices. The zeros command will make a matrix of zeros, that's 2 by 3. The ones command, again, same thing, 2 by 3. Or the I command, I'm making a 5. So if I run this, you can see that it made each of those made each of those matrices that we wanted to see. Okay, so that is a quick look over some of the basics of getting you into MATLAB. Let's go back to the slides now and see if we missed anything. We can go back and check on. So the one thing that's really helpful is this NumPy for MATLAB users document, and so here's a link for it, and basically gives a side-by-side comparison of MATLAB and Python commands. And overall, what you'll find is that they're quite similar, but there are some subtle differences between them to pay attention to. The most important ones are that MATLAB indexing uses parentheses rather than brackets, like Python does. I really prefer the brackets so that you can tell that is different than calling a function. But be that as it may, that this is the difference that you need to be aware of. And in MATLAB, indexing starts at 1, whereas in Python, indexing starts at 0. So that's a really important difference to be aware of. Okay, in terms of other special characters, let's see. We said assignment, we've done these sort of operations, and noted that parentheses are used for both indexing and in functions. The colon is denoting a range, like 1 to 3, for example. And these brackets are mostly used in creating arrays. And horizontal concatenation and vertical concatenation is easier by just using these brackets here than they are in Python. We use the percents for comments rather than the hashes for comments, and the strings are the same. A few other things here. One is that in MATLAB, if you want to do element by element math, you use a dot star, whereas often MATLAB would or Python would let you just get away with using a star. It's because MATLAB is much more based on matrix math and makes you be explicit when you don't want to do this by matrix math. One thing, remember when we were doing Gaussian elimination, we had to say that in SciPy we use the solve command. Well, the solve command gets replaced by this L-divide, matrix L-divide in MATLAB. I don't think we're going to have to use that right now, but that's something to be aware of. And then you got these various operators, of course. Okay, I think we just checking. These are just little snippets of code, but we've used all of those in the video just above. And then here's just a smattering of additional commands that you'll often use in MATLAB. Let me see some of them. We've used some of them main ones, but things like max, min, mean. The find peaks command is really nice. To build matrices, the 1, 0s, I are useful. And then we're going to talk about plotting in a separate video, so don't worry about that for now. And one thing that is really important in MATLAB that makes it quite popular is that the documentation is outstanding. And so, I'll just give you an example of that. If I search documentation right here, I'll search for the I command. This is not making my point for me right now. Okay, it seems to be coming, so I'll be patient and wait. Okay, so this is all not just kind of anywhere on the web, but this is in the documentation. And so it says I, and then there are good alternative versions of how it's used. And then the most helpful thing in MATLAB documentation that they always have really good examples of how to use the code down below. And so I'd say that the documentation is outstanding for most aspects of MATLAB. And so definitely making sure that you take a use of it. You can either just search from the help bar or search online, but it makes you, it keeps you from having to look anywhere like at Stack Overflow or something for those materials, because it's all really nice documentation in one place. Okay, well, that's it for today. So I hope that was useful for you, and I will see you next time.